So I'm Barbara Cunningham. I've trained as a singer for years and years, I suppose. I still have occasional coaching now, not as much as I used to, but if I'm learning something new or I've got something very demanding to sing, I'll go for coaching. I started when I was in sixth form school, actually, when I was cast in a very early opera called Dido and Aeneas by a composer called Henry Purcell, who's about 1650, something like that. And one of the people who was playing, because we had a professional orchestra for that, one of the people playing in that said that I should take it further and that I should have singing lessons, and that's when I started. So I've had singing lessons privately, and then when I was a student I came to London and I switched after a while to having training at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, which I did when I was doing my degree, and then I did a sort of post-grad vocal studies course at Guildhall. And I stayed at the Guildhall then after I'd finished there the full-time. I stayed there as a part-time for quite a long time before then going back to having private lessons. My coach is a countertenor called Tim Penrose, and the reason that I actually go for coaching to a countertenor is because of the kind of music I do. So I don't have a big operatic voice with a lot of vibrato in it. What I aim to do is to keep my voice as straight as possible most of the time. When you're singing a solo, I think you do need a little bit of vibrato because it warms it up and it helps it carry as well. But generally, and particularly if I'm singing in a group, I actually want it to be as straight as possible to blend with the other voices. So when I was in my 20s, I was working much more full-time as a singer than I am now. Quite a lot of solo work in and around London. I used to do a lot of work in the West Country, in Bath, for example. I obviously got into various people's lists down there, oratorios and things like that. I also sang with the Monteverdi Choir and with the Academy of St Martin in the Fields for a long time. Then when I had children, I didn't want to travel so much because I was doing an awful lot of travelling. The Monteverdi Choir did much more work in Europe than they did in England. And I wanted to stop travelling, and I got tired of living out of a suitcase all the time. That's when I moved much more into full-time teaching. But I still sing professionally, not nearly as much as I did. And as I say, I've been with the same coach for a long time, 20 years, something like that. Right, expectations for a performer. I think the first expectation, of course, is that it will be absolutely accurate. But that's a kind of minimum. I suppose the other thing is that it will be a sort of living performance and that you will bring some of yourself to it as well. It depends what you're doing, of course. I mean, because I mainly do concert work rather than sort of stage kind of opera work. The other expectation, I think, is that the sound will be as beautiful as it can be. If you're singing in a group, of course, the expectation is also that you will blend and your voice won't stand out at all. So there's a kind of contradiction there, because as a soloist, you want to have something in your sound which is you, which is unique to you. So even if somebody had their eyes closed, they would know that you're singing. Whereas actually, as a member of a group, it's the opposite, because actually you've got to be part of the group sound and not be standing out as an individual. Ideally, you should practice every day, or at least not have more than 1 or 2 days where you don't. I always start with some breathing, just kind of reminding myself to kind of breathe using the diaphragm, not to breathe from up here, to breathe from down here. It's something that I really struggled with at first. I had to really think about breathing. I don't think it naturally came. And I don't think that, if you think of the human body as an instrument, mine is not ideally designed, because I don't have particularly broad shoulders, I don't have a lot of breadth here, and I don't have a lot of breadth here, which as a singer you just need, because obviously it makes the instrument better. So start with breathing, then by sort of warming up the voice, so I would always start with humming really gently. The other thing, of course, and it kind of comes as second nature once you've done some training, is to keep the palate open, so to have a completely open throat. And that's something which when you're first starting you really need to work on. So you've got to imagine that you're yawning, and when you do a really big yawn, it opens the throat like that, and when you're singing, that's how you sing all the time. So I would be incapable of singing not like that, but it's one of the things that when you first start you really have to learn. So certainly as a beginner I'd really focus on that. And then things like scales, just to keep your range, so that you're using the whole of your voice when you're practicing, and also it helps to keep it very accurate, especially if you do chromatic scales, especially when they're coming down, because it's very difficult to keep a pitch, and pitch is really important. So those are the I suppose those are the really fundamental exercises that ideally, as I said, you would do every day, and certainly not miss more than a couple of days. Diet is really important, and I am an example of what not to do, really. So a lot of singers don't eat any dairy products at all because they create mucus in the throat and the top of the chest. But I'm a cheese addict, unfortunately, so I still eat cheese. Some singers don't drink alcohol either because it's quite dehydrating, but I break the rules on that sport as well. And the one thing I do try and do is drink plenty of water, and of course that's common to all singers. Most singers will walk around with a bottle of water all the time. The common things are no dairy and no alcohol. One of the things I really had to work at when I started singing and decided it was something I was really going to pursue was my speaking voice. Because my speaking voice was naturally, and I think it still is, not very strong and quite high, and I think that's partly to do with coming originally from the northeast, because in Tyneside I've decided, which is where I come from because I come from Newcastle, Tyneside women don't speak in their chest voice, they speak in their head voice, which is a really, really bad thing to do because it really strains the voice. For example, if you get on the bus in Newcastle, all the women will be talking up here like that, and their voice right up there like that. Not down here like that at all. And I hope I would never quite talk like that. It was a little bit edgy, it was a little bit in their head. If I listen to my mother or my sister talk now, that's how they talk. And I had to really, really concentrate on bringing my voice down so that it's resonating here when I talk, rather than up here, because I was losing my voice all the time. And it's something that my early singing teachers really worked on with me. So when I sing, because I'm a soprano, I sing in head voice, so my voice is resonating basically between here and here most of the time. And I can tell what note I'm singing by where it's resonating in my head. So an F sharp, for example, is on my eyebrows. But when I talk, I really have to focus on talking down here on my chest. Otherwise, I lose my voice. And I think that's a really crucial thing. So that's something I would add to what I was thinking about exercises, that actually speaking and thinking about how you speak all the time is really important.